Hi there. In this lesson, or a series of lessons, we're going to look at how we can introduce templating into our web applications in order to reduce basically this stuff, this whole mass of ugly HTML that we've been putting in long strings within our code. This is kind of less than ideal for a few reasons. One is that it's just kind of messy and hard to read. And then additionally, it's hard for us to maybe potentially share these templates, these HTML templates across files. It also prevents us from getting sort of some of the nice features of syntax highlighting and things like that we would get if this code was actually in an HTML file. So that's essentially what we're going to do. We're going to look at how we can take HTML content and put it into templates and then use those templates in a similar way that we did when we used string.format, say right here, return string.format to then render the strings within our Python code. We'll see how we can do that in a similar way with template files, and we can store our HTML templates in their own specific locations. Okay, so to do that, we're going to use a template engine called Jinja2. And they call themselves the Python template engine. And it's a very nice template engine. It works really well. And it's very, it's sort of built into Flask more or less. So we're going to go ahead and use it. And its syntax is something you're going to have to learn, but is pretty quick to pick up relative to, other things you've done so far. Okay. So let's go through the steps now of incorporating Jinja into our Flask application. So again, I'm going to work with the Hello Flask application that we've been working with before. And just introduce some templates in place of the ugly HTML strings that we've been using previously. So let's go ahead and go to that working directory. And then let's activate our virtual environments. All right, and then I already have my code editor open. And so what I want to do now is I want to get rid of, the couple of places where I'm using these long HTML strings. I'm using it one here in this time form. I'm also using one up here for this name form. Let's do this for this one first, since it's smaller and we can kind of more readily see exactly what we're doing. So in order to use Jinja within our applications, we need to do some basic setup stuff. So the first thing we need to do is import a couple of modules. Let's go ahead and import. We're going to need the OS module, which we'll see why in a second, and we're going to need the Jinja2 module. Okay. Now, the next thing I need to do is to make a place to put my templates. So over in my source directory pane here, I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call it templates. Okay. And now I need to do some work to basically initialize the Jinja2 template engine within my Flask application. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some of that. So the first thing I need to do is to specify where my templates will be stored. So let me say template dir equals, and I'm basically going to build up a file system path here based on a couple of parameters. Okay, so what does that say? This basically says make a new file system path by joining the location of the current file that we're in with the templates directory. So since templates is next to my main.py file, I can just basically append that on to the path of my current file or the folder. This will be the name of the folder that the current file lives in. And so this will be something representing the directory that holds my templates. Now I need to go ahead and initialize the Jinja engine, the Jinja templating engine, using that templates directory. So I'm going to create a global variable called jinja_env. And I have to specify a loader parameter. And yeah, so we'll put this code in the notes for this particular lesson, but you can more or less copy and paste it when you use it. Whenever you're using Jinja in this way, you can basically use the same exact code. So we're going to create a new Jinja2 environment. We specify the template loader. The template loader is going to be an object that knows where the templates live in the file system and is able to go fetch them and load them into the application's memory when we need them. And so we create a Jinja2 file system loader. and we tell it that we want it to load templates from our template directory. Okay, so this is fairly boilerplate. You'll do this a few times, and when you do it, you can pretty much either just mimic what we're doing or copy paste from notes. Okay, so now we can use this Jinja2 to pull in templates whenever we want to use one. So let's go ahead and see exactly how to use a template. Right, let's create our first template. I'm going to come over here to the templates directory and create a new file there. And let me call this hello form.html. Our Jinja2 templates will always have the HTML extension. And what I want this form to do, or this template called hello form to do, is basically to replace this ugly string that we see right here within my Python file. So let me copy and paste. I can pretty much, well, cut paste. I can pretty much just pull this out and paste it in there. And so a couple of things. Notice first that I get syntax highlighting. That's great. And this actually is an HTML file. So if I wanted to pull this up as a static HTML file in my browser just to look at it without having it go through the application, I could actually do that. Okay. Now back over here, my form string is something I now need to get rid of and replace with the template functionality. So let's go and see where we were using that. So here's the one place where I'm rendering that form, right? So I want, instead of that thing to be there, I want to now utilize the Jinja templating engine to render that form. So I can use that. I can do that by fetching the template. So let me create a variable called template, which will hold the specific template. And I get that by saying jinja2.get template. And then I give it the name of the template relative to my template directory. Okay, so I just say, hey Jinja, go find that template for me. And then I can render that template into a string. So I can say template.render. Okay, in this case, I don't have any parameters that I'm going to pass into my template. It's just static HTML. So this is the simplest version, the simplest use case of template.render that you can use. We'll use a more complicated use case in just a second. But first, let's go see if this worked. So let's fire up our application and then check it out in a browser. Okay, so nothing looks different from before, but since it did render properly and we know we removed that global form variable, we must have used the template properly. It must have rendered properly. So that looks like it all worked. Let's go ahead and go back here and look at how we can then use a template that actually has some variable or non-static data within it. So down here where I render this message that basically greets the user and says, hello user, I want to put this in a template as well. Okay, so let me make a new template. I'm going to call this hello greeting.html. And here I basically want to insert this content. Before I was kind of lazy and I didn't put the HTML or doc type or any of that stuff in this response, but since I can do this now, I'm in a template. Let me go ahead and actually make a properly formatted HTML file. Okay, and then within the body, that's where I want to insert this string. So let me go ahead and cut this out. And then we'll just paste it right there, and let's get rid of all of this Python-y stuff here. And now what I want to show you is how you can actually have Jinja insert a piece of data in place of a placeholder, similarly to how we were using placeholders for the string.format method. So to do that, you can just surround any identifier with double curly braces, okay? And this tells Jinja to look for a piece of data that was passed to it when asked to render this template that has this name. So we can pass that data from over here in our handler. All right, so first we need to get the template. So let's say template equals Jinja env.get template. Our template this time is called hello greeting. All right. And now when I render the template, I can say template.render, and I can pass in a parameter by name. So I can say first name equals first name. And actually, let me just make sure let me change the name of these just to show you how they actually depend on each other. I'll call this one name within the template, and then I'll say that I want name to be equal first name over here when I render it. So this passes in the value of the first name variable under the key name to the template so that when the template is rendered, that value will be inserted into that particular spot marked by the double curly braces. Okay, so let's go ahead and run our application and see how we did. Okay, looks like my application's still up and running. So let's go back and refresh, type in our name, and that seems to have worked. All right, so one thing I do want to show you though is that we still have this issue where we can break the HTML. Even when we're using templates, we can still have this HTML escaping issue come up where we have someone insert data that has HTML in it that then breaks our views or potentially even our application. So we have an easy way to fix this actually within Jinja. So we still need, to handle this. We could actually, one way to do it would just be to come in here and just to call, CGI escape every time we pass in data into our template. However, that would get really old, right? If we have a large application with lots of templates, it would get kind of annoying to every time we pass data into a template to call CGI.escape. Turns out that Jinja actually has a nice way of handling this. And so we can, up above where we create our Jinja engine, we can tell it that we want to auto escape. Okay, so let's right here within my Jinja2.environments call, I can say auto escape equals true. Okay. Now to see this work, we're going to have to kill our application and restart it. That's because we made this change at this global level that runs exactly once when the application starts up. So let's do that, and then let's go test it out. Okay, so let's make sure that it works under the normal and abnormal circumstances. So normal way still works. Let's come here and put some garbage in there, and we see that it's escaped. So from now on, once you're using templates, from now on, go ahead and create your template environment, your Jinja2 environment, using the auto escape equals true, and that will go ahead and insert the HTML character entities in there whenever you have, angle brackets in user input or in user data. Okay. So that's the basics of using Jinja, setting up a Jinja environment, creating a template directory within your application, and then rendering templates. In future lessons, we're going to look at some more sophisticated use of Jinja and things that you might want to do with it in the future.